Good morning, friends. Today we will discuss one of the most impactful and controversial events in the history of man. The world witnessed the destruction unleashed when the two cities of Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, were bombed. For this event that occurred in 1945, nothing would ever be the same again. Indeed, World War II was never remembered as something much else other than its end. It just happened to be the first and last time nuclear weapons were used in war. But why did it ever happen? What was the compulsion of the US to take such extreme measures by letting atomic bombs on Japan? Was it inevitable to stop the war or some other force compelling it to do so? Let's try to simplify the facts, theories, and debates on this event and try to find out why the world has sunk so low in its bitter depths. The story started off with incidents before the bombings. It was already 1945, and World War II had been on for nearly 6 years. Most of Europe was in ruins. The Allies had defeated Germany, but the war in the Pacific went on. Japan, which entered the war with the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, did not surrender. The Japanese military had a spirit of desperate fighting. It is termed Bushido, or the way of the warrior. Their commitment to this meant that Japanese soldiers and even civilians would fight to the death, rather than surrender. In fact, the battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa had already shown the cost for the Allies of a full-scale invasion of Japan. More than 1 million Allied casualties if they tried to take Japan by land. In the early 1940s, the US had begun the Manhattan Project, a top-secret effort to construct nuclear bombs. Scientists, including Albert Einstein, wired President Franklin D. Roosevelt with the warning that Germany, under its Nazi regime, was trying to construct nuclear bombs, so the US should begin its own efforts. By mid-1945, they did. They had two: Little Boy, which used uranium, and Fat Man, which was plutonium. When the bombs were ready, an important question lay before the United States. Will they use this destructive weapon or look elsewhere to make Japan surrender? President Harry S. Truman, who had recently inherited the office, was placed in an excruciating position. There are a number of theories and reasons that historians offer for why Truman decided to use the bombs. Let's go through the most often cited one by one. The United States argued that dropping the bomb was a way to speedily end the war with low casualty. The campaign would be long and extremely bloody, with heavy loss on both sides assured. It was estimated that up to 1,000,000 American soldiers would be killed, and millions of Japanese civilians could lose their lives in the fighting if the war continued, ended. Another theory is that the United States wanted to take a place at the helm of the post-war world, as all eyes were fixed on it. After all, the newly emerging superpower, Joseph Stalin, was set to sit at the helm of the Soviet Union. Using the atomic bomb, the United States showed the world, and certainly the Soviet Union, that it sported unmatched military might. So it is quite debated, but such that the fact that Truman and other US officials had caution regarding the intentions of the Soviets in Europe and Asia lends its supporting factors. A historical fact is that Japan refused to surrender even after it had been very badly bombed and blockaded. It wanted no terms of surrender whatsoever. The Japanese leaders demanded terms of surrender that would allow them to retain their emperor, Hirohito. The Allies insisted on unconditional surrender, and so long as these demands were made, Japan appeared quite willing to continue fighting. The Manhattan Project cost an estimated $2 billion, more than $28 billion. Today, other historians believe that the United States sought to test the bomb to justify its investment in massive amounts of dollars in research and technology. On August 6, 1945, a US B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay dropped Little Boy On Hiroshima, almost instantly, the city was razed to the ground. The blast killed some 70,000 to 80,000 immediately in the immediate area, and tens of thousands more died subsequently from injuries and radiation exposure. 3 days later, on August 9th, Fat Man was dropped by the United States on Nagasaki, killing almost 40,000 instantly. The destruction was unprecedented and has had very long-lasting effects, as the survivors termed. Hibakusha have suffered from radiation-related health problems for generations. It is here that the debate gets extremely intense. Most historians reckon that Japan was already at the stage of surrender and that the bombings were not actually the reason for them surrendering. It was on August 8th that the Soviet Union had declared war on Japan and was already poised to invade Japanese-occupied territories. Some feel that Japan would have surrendered if only the US had waited or exercised more diplomatic effort. Others claim that the bomb would have been shown to the world had it allowed a demonstration instead of dropping it into crowded cities. After all, failure is always feared by the military in case of a demonstration. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were as much an effect on the nation of Japan as for all humankind. For Japan, it surrendered on August 15, 1945, marking the end of World War II. But horror would be served. Because nuclear arms had been unleashed, their devastating power could now be seen by all of humankind, and the age of nuclear war began. Internationally, it catalyzed the nuclear arms race of the Cold War, with the